In today's video guys, we're going to break down this application, Expose 2 for mastering the mix. It's not a single song I ever exported either as just a mix or master and then threw it on this plugin to get the most insight out of my work, to know if I'm good to go or I might still need some corrections and adjustments to make. Let's get into it guys. Yo guys, you're welcome to the video. On this channel we simplify mixing and mastering by not only just teaching you how to use tried, tested and proven game-changing tools and plugins, but also most importantly teaching you how to think as a mixing and mastering engineer. I believe that mindset is everything, and personally as someone who learned the hard way by testing, experimenting, trying, failing and growing, I think I'm in the best position to help you not waste time and years by being selective about what I teach you, because I know exactly where you're going to face the most challenges. All of this is to say, subscribe and stay glued to the channel. So the first thing I do after exporting my project is I drag and drop it on this application. You can either drag and drop, or you can choose this browse file section here and select your file. It's the same file, so I'll just delete the first one. So this is how you import your tracks on this application. After which you can go ahead to analyze and get every important information you need out of the track. The next thing I always do after dropping my files is I select a preset, and over here this application has a bunch of presets. You have presets ranging from mixing, you can have a balanced, dynamic, loud and punchy, to mastering. You see a whole bunch of mastering presets over here, from all round to Apple Digital, right down to YouTube, Spotify, and you have user where you can actually design your own user preset that suits your needs and taste. Actually guys, I don't always pay attention to this mixing preset. I believe that every track is unique, so I like to mix my track and bring out the uniqueness in that particular song I'm working on. And then I use this application just for the mastering preset. Normally, I should go for the Spotify preset, but I always prefer this loud preset over here. The reason is because this Spotify preset is limited to how Spotify plays tracks on the platform, which is always around -14 LUFS, and that is very low for me. I always prefer this loud preset, and the LUFS on this loud preset is -8, and that to me is a sweet spot for a loud master. After that guys, if I'm going to compare my song with other reference songs that I like, I'll go ahead and load the reference songs. Let me load a particular song here. For example, I think I have this song here on Wizkid's last album. Let's see, like this song, Ben. I will go over here to the loudness preset and I can choose either the short-term LUFS or the integrated LUFS. The reason you would want to select this loudness match is because you want your song and the reference song to play at the same perceived volume level. So it's advised to use a short-term LUFS if you are comparing between different tracks, and an integrated LUFS if you're comparing different versions of the same track. And let me load more reference tracks, for example. And guys, something to pay attention to is you don't just load reference tracks randomly. You load tracks that are similar in the same style and genre as your own track you're working on. Let me load another track of mine again, one that you've probably heard on this channel. Let me see. So when you're done loading your tracks guys, you can select each track by just clicking on the title. When you click on the title, you see that particular track is highlighted. Let's select this track of ours and see what information we get out of this plugin from it. So guys, for the sake of this section of the video, I will go between the mastering presets so whatever I'm explaining can make more sense. Let's select the Spotify preset for now. We're still going to come back to this loud preset. Now I'm going to take you guys through the most important features of this plugin. Each of our tracks is divided into 4 sections. In the first section here, we have the loudness readings, which is divided into 2. We have the integrated LUFS, which gives us a reading of -9.6, and the short-term LUFS, which gives us a reading of -7.2. After that, we have the peak reading, which is also divided into 2 sections. The first one is the Decibels True Peak, which is abbreviated as dBTP, and the second one is the Decibels Peak. So our Decibels True Peak is giving us a reading of 0.13, and our Decibels Peak is giving us a reading of 0.00. After that guys, we have the third section, which is the stereo field, and is also divided into two. Above is the left and right stereo spread, and below is the stereo correlation, which indicate any phasing issues. And after that, we have the last section, which is also very important. That is the dynamic range, and is also divided into two. Above, we have the dynamic range of the song, and below we have the loudness range of the song. So the dynamic range of our song is 7.2 and the loudness range of our song is 4.3. The same four sections apply for every other track. So guys, what happens is, if any of these sections is highlighted in red, it doesn't instantly mean it has a problem. It just signals that that particular section of your track doesn't align with the target of the preset you've set. And that was why I said we are going to go between the presets just so I can drive my point clearly. Now we're using the Spotify preset, and as you can see, almost all of our tracks are in red. In the loudness section here, our integrated LUFS is red, but the short-term LUFS is blue. Our peak readings are all completely red. Our stereo field is completely in blue, which means we are good. And our dynamic range is red, but the loudness range is good. Let's select the loud preset for the master, and you will notice that all of that red kind of just disappears, except for the dynamic range. We can also see on this Wizkid song over here, every other thing is in blue. The dynamic range is good except for the loudness range. We have this analysis feedback. Now let me show you what happens when you click on this analysis feedback. Let's select a track and click on the analysis feedback. So see what happens, guys. Our loudness section is blue, and this is what the analysis feedback tells us. The LUFS integrated target is -8 LUFS. That tells us that for this loud preset, the target is -8 LUFS, but our track is -9.6 LUFS. So it's suggesting that we adjust our limiter input gain by +1.6 dB to achieve an average loudness of -8 LUFS. You see guys, this is very important information. So let's say our target was really -8 LUFS, and after mastering we arrived at -9.6. This tool helps us avoid a lot of guesswork by telling you exactly the numbers you need to add to your limiter to arrive at your -8 LUFS. You see guys, the same thing applies for the peak section. It tells us the Decibels True Peak target is -0.1 and we are at 0.13. So it's telling us to adjust our output gain by -0.23 dB to arrive at the -0.1. This is very important information guys, and I'll tell you why this section is very necessary. Let's go back to the Spotify preset. You see, with the Spotify preset, this peak section is completely red, which tells us we are going above the -1 dB true peak that Spotify always recommends. And what happens when we go above this -1 dB true peak is our track has the tendency of clipping. Whenever you convert a file from digital to analog, you never want it to cross the 0 dB true peak. When it crosses the 0, you have a high possibility of your track clipping and possibly distorting, and that is something you don't want. So to avoid that, you always want to keep it always below 0 dB true peak, and Spotify even goes as far as advising you to keep it at least at -1 dB true peak. This is to minimize completely the possibility of your track clipping or distorting. So I did this track in FL Studio. Let's open the project and check out our limiter settings. These were my settings on this track. I engaged the true peak limiting to prevent it from actually going above that 0 true peak, and I set the output at -0.6 just to avoid it going above 0 dB. But after exporting, our track still went above 0 dB. It went right up to 0.67 dB true peak, you see. And that is something you wouldn't know because you assume you set your true peak limiter and you set your output at -0.6, so you assume it's good. But then after converting to analog, we still went above the 0, you see. So this tool is advising us to adjust our limiter output by -1.67 to achieve that -1 dB true peak. But this is for the Spotify preset. Let's see what it will tell us for the loud preset. For the loud preset, the target is -0.1. And it's telling us to adjust our output some more by -0.23, which means if we go back to our track, we already set at -0.6. We need to add -0.23 to it, which is basically -0.9. Let's just round it up. If we set it to -0.9, we are going to achieve this target range here. Let's go back to the Spotify preset, guys. So another thing you realize here is, if you check out here on our track, on this era track, you also see that the stereo field, now if we click on it, we can actually see the section where the left and right is unbalanced. You can see over here in the intro and over here. This could also be intentional, and most of the times it's always really not a problem, because while you're arranging your song, there are sections in your song where one instrument pan to either the left or the right might play alone and is not supported by another instrument pan to the opposite side to create a balance. So like I said, it doesn't always necessarily mean it's a problem, but then it's just highlighting that for you to check it out. On this Wizkid song, Piece of My Heart, you can notice we have a red section here, and this red section is the loudness range. So this is what this tells us here on the Wizkid song. Your audio doesn't have a broad dynamic difference between the sections in your audio, verse, chorus, etc. These two, guys, the loudness range is not something you should pay too much attention to. It could just be the style of your music and the style of your arrangement. What you should really pay attention to is the dynamic range. And as you can see on this song, the dynamic range is at 7.6, which is good. On our song, this first song here, it tells us our dynamic range is not good at 7.2. So why is that so? It's telling us part of our audio is too compressed for this preset. If no red lines appear in the waveform, then this means the errors are extremely brief and can possibly be ignored. So it's not really a big deal like that, guys. Now I believe you understand the readings from this first section here, the LUFS, the Decibels True Peak, the stereo field, and the dynamic range. Down here, guys, we have the EQ curve. This gives you the EQ curve of your track. This is very important. If you remember, guys, on our last video about gain staging, I told you guys that a balanced track actually has an EQ curve. And if you start paying attention, you actually notice this curve. So what I would advise you do is you can always select tracks that you actually like how they sound and feel, and load them up in this plugin and just check out the EQ curve. You start by checking out the readings, and then you also check out the EQ curves. When you check out the EQ curves, especially if these sounds are of the same genre, you see that they would easily have a similar EQ curve. You see there's a dip around 100 Hz here with most of the tracks, except for this one track that doesn't dip around 100 Hz. Let's hide it and check out just the rest of the other tracks. You see, guys, there's actually a curve. It's not the same for all of the tracks. All of the tracks cannot always have the same EQ curve, but you notice that there's a pattern. This gives you valuable information on why the track sounds the way it sounds and why it feels the way it feels, which greatly impacts why you love the sound. So this expose tool is a tool you should actually play around with, not just only checking your masters when you're done, but select songs that you like, drop it here, observe the EQ curve, check out different presets, see what the reading says, and you start noticing a pattern. And eventually when you start dropping your own songs on here, without necessarily comparing to reference tracks, you'll start noticing areas in your song that most likely require your attention. So basically this is how this tool works, guys. There's so much going on in here, but I believe with the information I've given so far, you can take your time, understand this tool, and get the most out of it. And you can always select just a particular section of the song that is highlighted in red and play just that section to understand why it's highlighted red. And also worth mentioning, this is just a tool to guide you. It's not a total benchmark of how things should be. It just guides you to make informed decisions when mixing and mastering. And I've found that this tool saves me a lot of time and always gives me very great results. Thank you guys for sticking with me to the end. See you in the next video. Take care.